Welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be taking a look at my Sega Neptune mod that I did a few years ago. It's actually my most popular video on this channel, which is actually unfortunate because I really didn't like that video too much. Since making this, I've actually encountered some problems. One being the reset switch doesn't work, and the other being some sort of inconsistency. Some games would actually freeze. I've got a general idea what's going on, and hopefully I can fix it in this video. Now in my original video I did get a lot of great comments, a lot of suggestions, and I'm going to try to address them one at a time as this video progresses. And I'm also going to show some of the workmanship here. Now it's pretty amateurish, but all in all it still came out better than I expected. In this shot, as I remove the screws on the two white ribbon cables, you can see that I've added back the ferrite rings. In the previous video I did remove them, and I recommended removing them due to space constraints. But later on I discovered that some games will lock up on the first stage, some will lock up after the press start on the splash screen. So I do recommend keeping the ferrite rings. In my previous video I didn't really showcase the work too well, or the finished product. Here is just the front end of all the wires connected to the cartridge connector, and if I try to lift this piece up, it's giving me a bit of resistance because if you remember I taped a whole bunch of jumper wires together, and I actually made like a connector that went through the through holes, so it's giving me resistance and I don't want to pull on it. Here I made the amateur mistake in not adding fresh solder to these through holes, and also my desoldering gun wasn't cooperating with me this day. So I did lift one of the traces a bit, but it still worked out and nothing really was damaged. These switches are actually a massive improvement on the original. They're actually like a small micro switch, and I got them on console 5. They were relatively cheap and I bought 5 to get a bit of a discount. Here in this shot you can see that the top right through hole, half of it is gone. This is another reason why I wouldn't make these for others. Many people have asked how much I would charge to make them one, and I just don't feel comfortable. Now as for the bottom shield, in my previous video someone did comment that it's really not necessary, and I pushed back on him a bit, and he was actually right. It's really not necessary, and I did discard it. Plus on the underside of the shield it wasn't in great shape, so I don't mind, I just tossed it. I've actually in the future have to source better screws because these are already stripped and they're kind of hard to find lengthy screws like this in my parts, so I have to actually go down to the hardware store and pick some up. Now here are the two problems that plague 32Xs in general. These two ribbon cables often have to be reseated because of lockups and freeze ups, and I think they're just flawed in general. I think by being so long they're like antenna and they create a lot of interference, and I think Sega knew that's why they added the two ferrite rings. So what I did was I went to the 32X subreddit, which by the way this place is a ghost town, so when you leave this video go over there, sub to them if you like 32X stuff. And I saw one of the commenters posted that he built his own and he used these ribbon cables from DigiKey. So I went ahead and ordered some of these ribbons, and I gotta tell you, this makes one hell of a difference. In fact, if they have a shorter length, I would recommend even shorter length. To insert these ribbon cables, I actually didn't use any adhesive or glue. I just sandwiched them together and I inserted them like a card. They're actually not as flimsy as you may think. After the ribbon's inserted, I added the ferrite ring. So to insert the other end, it's just bend it over, a little finesse, and you'll actually feel it hit the bottom if you're doing this yourself. Now notice I didn't crimp anything, I didn't pinch it, I didn't make a 90-degree angle on this cable. It's still rounded at the top like a bubble. So on this side I'm just going to repeat what I just did. So now that everything's in place, these ribbons are actually hitting against the cartridge throat, this plastic brace here. So I'm going to grind a large section of it off. I did some eyeball measuring of where I needed to cut, but in the end I actually needed to cut more than what I thought. And I actually did have to pinch the two ribbon cables just a bit, not a lot, to get the top half of the shell to seat properly. So now that everything is put back together, let's see if that reset button works and if the console freezes up. So now I should test the reset switch, and yeah, it works. So now on to some 32X games. First up here, Pitfall. Bear in mind I'm playing this with one hand, so it's a bit tough for me. So next up, Street Fighter 2. So years ago when I first did this mod, all the games would play fine, but then months passed from that point and the problems did occur, and this game would actually lock up at the character screen, so I would have to open up the console, reseat the two ribbon cables, and the game would play again, but then a few weeks would pass from that point and the problems would come back. Now ever since this mod, this console hasn't given me any problems since. For the month of Halloween, I did play Castlevania Bloodlines and Splatterhouse 2 for a few hours actually, and I didn't get any problems. I also took the time to play this for a few hours, and this game has worked perfectly. God damn it, come on. A few people mentioned that I can no longer play Virtual Racing on the Genesis. That's true, but there's a 32X port which is cheaper and better, so never in my life will I ever want to play the original Virtual Racing.
Virtual Racing.
How hard can this be? I could probably do this one hand, right? Whoa, 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 whoa. Which one's the acceleration button? Oh, is it that? No, that's this button. Oh, I'm gonna mop them. So to wrap up this video, I'm going to test one more thing because I know someone will ask, does it work with the Sega CD? And of course it does. So I'll pop in my totally legit copy of Sonic CD. I'm always impressed at the RGB image. Even though I haven't really tweaked the OSSC settings, it just looks crisp even on generic. I wish I had some Sega 32X CD games, the ones that mix both the 32X hardware with the Sega CD hardware. Unfortunately, I don't, so I can't really test those games, but I'm sure they would work anyway. Anything that's compatible with the Sega CD and the 32X hardware would work on this console. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this update. I probably don't have to revisit this console anymore, so anyone who watched the original video and this video, I do really appreciate you all for watching. So thanks again.